Am I live? Am I live? I might be live. I think I can actually start reading tonight. I'm hoping I can. I think this is going to work. Um, so I am Kira Vermond, and I'm a writer for kids. I write nonfiction. And what's so interesting about nonfiction, like this book, Trending, we're going to be talking about this one tonight and reading from this one tonight. Um, the interesting thing about nonfiction is that not only do we have to be interesting and exciting and all of these wonderful things that really good storytelling does, but we also have to be true. We have to be true. Everything in this book has to be true, which is not an easy thing. So tonight, we're going to be talking about and reading from two of my books that came out this last year. This first one is Why Don't Cars Run on Apple Juice? And this one was so much fun to write because all of the questions in this book come from kids just like you, which is pretty darn cool. And I worked with the Science Center for this book. And has anybody been to the Science Center before? And I'm sure I can't see you, but yay. I'm sure a lot of you have actually been to the Science Center. I love that place. And so what I got to do is get these questions from kids just like you and interview the people who work at the Science Center, these really smart people who have a lot of answers. And so I think what we're going to do tonight, I see some people I know up there. Hello, Barbara. And what we're going to do tonight is we're going to do a little bit of an experiment about worms. But it doesn't really sound like worms at first, about worms at first. But the question is, why do worms come out when it rains? I don't know if you can see it. There we go. Why do worms come out when it rains? So the experiment that we need to do is if you're in a room with another person, two of you can be part of this experiment. And I want everybody right now, we're going to stomp our feet really hard. And this is just going to wake us up before going to sleep. But anyway, this is all going to be fine. Stomp your feet, stomp your feet, stomp your feet. Everybody stomp your feet. Oh, yay. Okay, all right. So we stomped our feet, and now I want the other person who's in the room with you to put your hand down on the ground and let the other person stomp their feet beside you. So we're going to do it one more time. One person, you choose which one you want to do. Who wants to do this? Put your hand on the floor. All right, and now the rest of us, we're all going to stomp our feet. Stomp your feet, stomp your feet, stomp your feet. Make it as hard as you can. All right, I once did this at a bookstore, and downstairs in this bookstore, there was a basement where kids were having a kid's birthday party, and we were all upstairs, and we were stomping our feet as hard as we could. And you've got to wonder what those kids were thinking downstairs in that basement. They had no idea what was going on upstairs. Okay, we're all stopped. So that person who had your hand on the floor, what did you feel? You probably felt some movement. You felt vibrations. And actually, worms love to feel vibrations because this is the reason. Okay, why do worms come out when it rains? When earthworms feel the vibration created by a downpour, it's as though their little worm brains think, great, the highway just opened. It's so much more convenient than the dirt road. Rain allows earthworms to quickly travel from one place to another. Slinking above ground is a lot easier than tunneling through the soil, which requires plenty of energy and time. Worms do not travel above ground when it's sunny, though, because their damp bodies would dry out way too quickly. And we have probably all seen those little sad dried out worms on the sidewalk. So we don't want that to happen to them. So they want to be above ground when it's sort of rainy and wet and kind of squishy because they can actually get above ground and travel a lot faster than tunneling through the earth. I used to think it was because the rain was coming down and they were worried about getting drowning in the water. That's not the reason. Okay, so that's the first book. That is Why Don't Cars Run on Apple Juice? And when our libraries open up again, woohoo, you can find it there. All right, also in bookstores too. All right, so Trending. Now, Trending is a book that I just released. It was just, Amy, I know, I was also wondering about worms too. That was quite a story. So Trending was this book that I put out. And it was, normally if you put out a book in the middle of a pandemic, maybe not a good thing. But you know what? for me, this was excellent, excellent timing because trending, this book, How and Why Stuff Gets Popular, it's really kind of about what we're dealing with right now, which is pretty interesting. And you're probably wondering, okay, what does trending and trends and fads have anything to do with a pandemic and have to do with viruses? Okay, so let's think about what a virus does. A virus, it travels from person to person to person, right? We can get a virus, we can get sick from a virus if we get it from somebody else. Now, the same thing happens with a fad. So let's say there's a hula hoop. An idea that a hula hoop is super, super cool can travel from person to person to person. It spreads just like a virus, which is pretty interesting. So let's say one kid loves hula hoops and he's like, okay, I'm just gonna get in this hula hoop and I'm just gonna do this all day. Another kid sees him in his hula hoop and he's like, okay, I really love that hula hoop, but I'm going to tell a couple more friends and a couple more friends. And you probably see this at school all the time, right? That there's like one little, I don't know, maybe somebody wears their socks inside out and everybody says, that's kind of silly, but this person's kind of cool. And you're thinking, maybe that's something, a cool thing that I'd like to do too. And so then a couple more kids start wearing their socks inside out. And then more kids, and suddenly the whole school is wearing their socks inside out. That's a fad. And the funny thing about fads is they go up really, really fast, right? There's like nobody's doing it. Then all of a sudden it kind of catches on and like takes off. It's on fire. Boom, goes up and then comes back down again. So we see that in every single fad. And we also see that in the pandemic too, right? We catch that virus and then a whole bunch of people do. And then it goes up, 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 up. You see those charts? Maybe you've seen them on TV or you've seen them on social media. They're all over the place right now. And then right now we're trying to just, like that curve, right? We don't want it to go up any further. We want it to stay straight. Trends and fads are a little different. They go up, then they go down. So that is what we're talking about here. So I'm going to be reading to you a couple of stories from this book. I think we're going to start with Pokemon Go. Hey, Karen, it's good to see you too. Okay, Pokemon Go. Now, some of you probably played this game. Some of you probably remember this game. And so I'm just going to read about it because this was one big fad. Okay, here's the story, Pokemon Go. It was 2016, what some people called the summer of Pokemon Go. In early July, millions of people downloaded an app, a game based on popular Japanese trading cards from the 1990s. Soon players were wandering around neighborhoods looking for ways to catch virtual monsters with their phones. The game was so hot, it spread around the world in a matter of days. Imagine, one or two people start playing them one day and it just went kaboom. And you know what? A lot of people were actually waiting for this game. So it wasn't just one or two people. A lot of people, jumped on right away. There was Pokemon pandemonium. Although the game was tons of fun and sent kids and adults outside to play for plenty of sunshine and exercise, there were side effects. For instance, hundreds of people would suddenly show up at a single location to capture Squirtles. This was a real problem at already busy locations. Gamers were trampling park flower beds, littering, and causing confusion. Officials worried about safety. Some players tried to capture digital monsters while driving and running into traffic and, funerals and cemeteries. That's not cool. Eventually, city governments decided they had to step in. Toronto asked the game developer to move digital Pokestops away from their busy downtown ferry terminal. If you're going to Center Island, right, that's where you catch it. The state of Illinois had a similar problem with heavy foot traffic destroying rare plant life in a Chicago conservation area. Then nearly as quickly as the fad started, Pokemon Go's popularity just dropped. By the end of August, when many kids headed back to school, the red-hot game flamed out. So at the bottom of every story that I have in this book, I have this little thing here that says, this little subhead that says, what does it all mean? So I talk a little bit about what each story means, an aspect of it anyway. And in this case, I looked at the fact that there have been studies and researchers who have looked at fads and trends, and they realize that the faster a trend or a fad takes off, the faster it falls. So if you're, let's say, a game developer and you want your game to last for a long, long time, or you write a book and you want people to read it for a long, long time, you don't actually want it to take off like crazy and everybody's reading it, because they kind of drop it really fast too, right? So I think that's, something for us all to know, that we don't want instant success. We want success that lasts and is created over time. That's how you get success. Okay, so now I'm going to read to you about, this is one of my favorites, baby names. Okay, baby names are cool. You're probably wondering, what is she talking about? Why would she want to talk about baby names? We're talking about fads and trends. Let's go. Okay, in 1936, an author named Margaret Mitchell wrote a brick of a book called Gone with the Wind. It was hugely popular and won an armful of big awards. The story's main character, a young woman named Scarlett O'Hara. You'd think parents would have been falling all over themselves to call their baby girl Scarlett, but that didn't happen. Not even when a blockbuster movie based on the book came out. The name barely cracked the 1,000 most popular names list in the United States. Maybe because Scarlett O'Hara wasn't exactly the nicest person. For decades, Scarlett was an uncommon name. Then suddenly, in 2016, it shot up the baby names lists, making it the 18th most popular girl's name in the United States. Odd. So what does it all mean? Look around your classroom. How many Gertrudes, Berthas, and Ronalds can you count? Probably not many. Meanwhile, there's a good chance you've got at least one Ava, Sophia, or Ethan a few desks over. Fads and trends don't just apply to toys, hairstyles, and shoes. Names can be hot or not, too. Experts who research fads, trends, and popularity love studying baby names because names offer insight into how popularity spreads without being influenced by outside forces, like advertising or technological advances or price differences. In other words, all names are worth pretty much the same. Even so, figuring out why some names become faddish while others remain underused is complicated. Here's what studies show. Okay, this is kind of interesting. We like to stand out a little. In countries that prize individualism, so we want to stand out, or standing out from a crowd, parents are more likely to choose names that are a little bit different. But here's an important key. They can't be too different. That's right. According to the experts, people who study names, if Emily is popular one year, new parents might give it a twist. Emma. Soon other parents will be naming their girls Ella, and then maybe Bella. See, they all kind of sound the same, but a little bit different. Which brings us back to Scarlett. Maybe its rise to sudden fame has nothing to do with the fact that new parents today have forgotten the scheming Scarlett O'Hara. Maybe they simply like it because it rhymes with another name that was trending just before it. Charlotte. Scarlett. Charlotte. Charlotte was trending before Scarlett. So I have a little question for you, a little experiment. Tell me which ones you think are a name that parents would never call their children. Okay, so the first one is, I'm just going to run this down, fish and chips. Everybody think that fish and chips is a name that parents would call their kids? How about strawberry? How about Tallulah does the hula from Hawaii? And Nutella. So it's kind of a trick question because these are all names that parents tried to call their kids. And the government said no, because that's mean. So they didn't let them do it, but I thought that was cool and kind of funny. All right, so the last story, we're going to talk about Beanie Babies. And parents out there might say, oh, I remember Beanie Babies. Oh my gosh, do I ever? Okay, so we're going to talk about Beanie Babies because the thing about fads is that not all of them are good. Not all of them are like no big deal and kind of silly. Some of them are kind of awful. And you would think that little Beanie Babies, these cute little stuffed animals, they'd be kind of fun to collect. Oh, unless it goes completely wrong. Okay, here's the story. Beanie Babies. Back in 1998, a masked man walked into a shop in California and told the employees to get down. He had a gun. The thief wasn't there for the money. He actually strode right past the cash register, ignoring the bills inside. Instead, he'd come for something far more valuable. Hi, Brian. He came for something far more valuable. Beanie Babies. It's Beanie Baby mania. It's a bubble. This robbery happened at the height of the Beanie Baby craze of the late 1990s. Within a few short years, what started out as a collectible stuffed animal pastime somehow took a very dark turn. At first, the beanbag toys appealed to kids. Beanies were small, only $5 a piece, with names like Blackie the Bear and Halo. Then their popularity exploded, not just with children, but with adults too. It went viral. Newspapers ran unbelievable stories about 13-year-olds making over $1 million by selling their collections. Moms bought them by the carload. A super rare Beanie Baby sold for $10,000 on eBay. Can you imagine $10,000? One family even sank $100,000 into the stuffed animals and spent all the money they'd saved for their kids' college education. They spent it on Beanie Babies. Meanwhile, a man in West Virginia murdered his co-worker over a Beanie Baby deal gone wrong. What's wrong with these people? The fad eventually tanked, and today millions of worthless Beanie Babies have been abandoned to basements and trash cans. Now, I talk a little bit about what this means, and part of it is that the gentleman who, Ty Warner, who actually created Beanie Babies, he was really good at making people want them. He dealt with supply and demand, so he would put Beanie Babies out into the world, and then he'd only put out a couple of them, or not a couple, but a few, and then he'd pull them back. He'd only have them out for a little while, so they were rare. And if people, the thing about rare things is that the more rare it is, the more people want them, and he knew that, so he exploited that. So unfortunately, this Beanie Baby fad turned into something pretty dark. And basically, grown-ups caught the craze, and it turned into a kind of a mania. And people actually lost a lot of money because they were basically gambling on Beanie Babies. So that was not awesome. So I guess those are the 3 stories from this book, from Trending, that I wanted to read to you guys tonight. Again, if the libraries open up again, I think at one point this was on the Cloud Library. Oh, no, Apple Juice was on the Cloud Library for a while, so you could get it that way. And of course, if you have independent bookstores out there, I love the independent bookstores. Like we have the Bookshelf in Guelph, and they actually deliver books to your house. It's awesome. Anyway, I just wanted to thank everybody tonight for listening to the story, and I hope that you learned something new tonight, because even though we cannot be together, we can always learn together. So everybody, good night and sleep tight and have wonderful educational dreams. All right, have a good night, guys. Good night.